Welcome, everyone. We're diving into some really unique source material today.
We are. It's a YouTube video, Palestra de 22046 51T42 semi-2E5. Os 4 bilhões de anos de Jesus na Terra.
From the GFE Herman Bezerra de Menezes channel with Celso speaking. And our goal really is to unpack the massive narrative presented here.
Exactly. It connects figures and events across billions of years, focusing on Jesus Christ's role in a way that's, well, it's quite different from traditional views.
Billions, yeah. So we're going to walk you through the key claims, try to make sense of the timeline presented.
All right. So where does it start? Interestingly, it begins near the end of Jesus' earthly ministry, his last prayer.
But not in Gethsemane, right? The video places it a week before Passover, like a specific gathering.
Yeah, and there's this little detail about Peter asking Jesus to maybe focus on his own worries for a moment, not just the group's.
That's a personal touch. And then there's that account from Joel Nunes Maya.
Oh yeah, very vivid. Describes seeing Jesus on a cedar stump, the wind. It's presented almost like an eyewitness memory.
Which leads into the prayer itself. There was that phrase.
Caridade em gema divina.
Iluminando todos os nossos sentidos. Charity as a divine gem, illuminating all senses.
Right. And the video connects that directly to the Spiritist idea, fora da caridade não há salvação.
Outside of charity, no salvation. So positioning charity as absolutely central to his final message in this account.
Precisely. That's the emphasis.
Okay, so from there, the video jumps forward, kind of, to talk about Spiritism itself.
It does. It mentions the 168th anniversary, April 1857, and acknowledges, that Spiritism is relatively young compared to other major religions.
But then it makes this claim, Spiritism as the Cristo Re Vivo, the living Christ King.
Yes, the third revelation. So Moses is the first, Christ the second, and Spiritism the third. It's that framework of progressive revelation.
Okay, but then the timeline just explodes backwards, doesn't it?
It really does. This is where we get the claim about Jesus being involved in Earth's formation 4.5 billion years ago.
4.5 billion. That's hard to wrap your head around. Working for 300 million years on the initial structure.
That's the claim.
Yeah.
And that he was designated the governor, the Señor das Estrelas.
Lord of the Stars. And he held that title until when?
Until 12,000 years ago, according to this narrative.
Which brings us neatly, or perhaps not so neatly, to Atlantis.
Exactly. Described as this continent showing Earth's potential and open heaven.
With some pretty advanced tech, apparently. Flying machines, bus-like things going 100 kilometers per hour.
Powered by the cold energy of a giant pyramid, 400 meters tall.
Located where? The Bermuda Triangle.
That's what the video states. And it's dormant now, waiting for Earth's axis to shift back to 0 degrees and, well, for humanity to stop fighting wars.
Right. And the Atlanteans themselves, they ate light.
The energia.
Primarily, yes. With occasional fruit, like papaya and peaches. It even mentions Andre Louise confirming, supposedly, 3,500 people on Earth today who live on light.
Okay, that's definitely diverging from standard biology. It is. Within Spiritism, there's sometimes this idea that spiritual evolution can change physical needs, but yeah, it's a big claim.
And then there's a prophecy from the Señor das Estrelas, Jesus again.
About Atlantis sinking. Because less evolved beings were arriving. This was supposedly foreseen 100 years before it happened.
Leading to a migration to Egypt.
Right, taking important documents, including a formula to negate gravity.
Which will only be released when we stop being violent.
That's the idea presented, stored in the pyramids.
And Atlantis eventually sank due to volcanoes.
Yes, and the video adds a more recent spiritual layer, rescuing suffering spirits from that area, while others remain attached to negativity. Mentioned seeing transparent marble columns underwater.
Wow, okay. So it weaves together history, prophecy, spiritualism.
It really does, and it loops back to Spiritism being the third revelation, the future, urging all religions to embrace Christ through this Spiritist lens.
Okay, so shifting gears again, the timeline moves to 1250 BCE. Moses.
Yes, and identified here as the reincarnation of King Attalus.
From Atlantis.
Presumably, yeah. And his calling isn't the burning bush exactly, but Jesus summoning him in the spirit world.
To teach in Egypt, seen as the peak civilization then.
Correct. And it reinterprets his father-in-law, Jethro, not just a shepherd.
Right, a respected Midianite authority owning the desert, Moses' teacher.
And his wife, Zipporah, also a student, not just a shepherdess.
So Moses spent 16 years in Sinai teaching, preparing people, establishing the first commandment, love God above all.
And the second, love thy neighbor, also attributed to Moses in Leviticus, at Jesus' command. according to the video.
And the reason for no prophets after Jesus?
Simple. The Messiah had already come. That's the explanation given.
Moving on. Elias, or Elijah, around 600 BCE.
Last prophet before Jesus, yeah. Opposing Baal worship. The video identifies Baal as a deified human spirit, Bara,
And it recounts the challenge on Mount Carmel, the drought.
and Elias killing the 400 priests of Baal, which the video notes had karmic consequences for him later.
But first, the miracle fire consuming the water-soaked offering.
Demonstrating God's power, yes. Then jump forward again. Greece, 469 BCE. Socrates.
Who is presented as Elias reincarnated.
That's the claim, portrayed as teaching the poor in public squares, which led to his condemnation.
And that story about him documenting his death by hemlock.
Yeah, for his followers. To show the soul's transition, telling anyone without faith in the soul's survival to leave. Quite a statement.
Then comes Plato, Socrates' successor.
And identified as the reincarnation of Allan Kardec.
The codifier of spiritism.
The very same. So Plato working with Socrates, Elias, and Aristotle.
Who's identified as Jethro, Moses' father-in-law.
In King Attalus before that, yeah. So this group, according to the video, laid the groundwork for Western thought, guided by these recurring spiritual figures.
The video includes some quotes from Plato, too, about politics, laws, friendship.
Things like, good people don't need laws to tell them to act responsibly, and the price of not participating in politics is being governed by your inferiors, those kinds of ideas.
Okay, now a major shift. The Gauls, modern-day France.
Described as this highly studied vegetarian people preparing for Christ's reincarnation. Yeah. They thought he'd be born there.
But Julius Caesar feared this and attacked them.
That's the narrative, building walls, trapping them, Roman soldiers crying the master cannot be born.
Really chilling. And there's an account of an escapee.
A young man, wounded, who found Allan Kardec, who was then a Druid high priest, and João Batista, John the Baptist, also present there.
And the tragic story of the Gaulish women.
Jumping from cliffs to avoid the Romans, yes.
Oh.
Very grim.
So Kardec was a Druid priest then? Overseeing students?
6 advanced students, yeah. One was supposedly the future Judas Iscariot, who took his own life then.
And the others?
Zephyro, also called Leon, Brian, Brita, and Brenda, who apparently reincarnated as the Baldwin sisters involved in early Spiritism, and Evelyn.
Evelyn became Joanna de Cusa, who supported Jesus financially and was martyred.
That's the connection made. And Joanna de Angelis, the spirit guide, is linked to a past life as an older medium assisting Kardec later. So, many connections.
The Druid training took 20 years. Bards, Vates, then Druids.
A rigorous process. And the remaining 5 students tried to escape by sea.
But they died.
Encountered a large wave, yes, but were spiritually rescued by Saint Louis, another key spirit in Spiritism.
And the high priest of the Druids at that time.
Yocana, identified as the reincarnation of John the Baptist.
Okay. There's also a dialogue mentioned between Zephyro and Kardec.
About good continuing even during war, like the sun still shining. And a Celtic text recited by Leon, which supposedly echoes spiritist ideas of reincarnation through different kingdoms, mineral, plant, animal, human.
Then Kardec has a vision
of a larger sun moving towards Palestine, realizing Jesus wouldn't be born in Gaul after all.
Yeah.
Which caused him great sadness.
And the war itself, instigated by Caesar. The video claims 3 million Celts died.
To prevent Jesus' birth there, driven by negative spiritual influences. It also mentions the Gauls had invaded Rome before, suggesting a layer of collective karma.
And eventually, both the high priest, John the Baptist, and Kardec were martyred by the Romans.
Yes, but ascended spiritually, immediately, preparing for their next lives.
Which sets the stage for Jesus' actual birth. The video mentions families moving to Galilee 100 years prior.
Forming a community to prepare. And that Jesus taught there from age 7 to 30.
So divine providence shifted the birth location from Gaul to Palestine.
That's how it's explained. And it clarifies the biblical prophecy about Elijah coming first, saying John the Baptist was Elijah, born 3 months before Jesus. It cites Matthew to back this up.
Okay. And finally, it comes to the promise of the Comforter.
From the Gospel of John, right. Jesus saying he had more to teach, but they weren't ready.
But when the Helper comes, whom I will send to you from the Father.
The Spirit of truth, he will teach you all things. The video directly equates this promise with the arrival of Spiritism 1857 years later.
Saying that now, in 2025, according to the video's context, we can understand these deeper truths revealed through Spiritism.
Exactly. And as a final sort of modern-day validation, it mentions Brazil legally recognizing April 18th as the Day of Spiritism in 2022.
Okay, so wrapping this up, we've covered an immense sweep of time, haven't we?
Absolutely. From Earth's formation, Atlantis, Moses, Elias, Socrates, Plato, the Druids in Gaul, Jesus' life, and finally the emergence of Spiritism as this promised third revelation.
It's a narrative that connects all these dots in a very specific and quite extraordinary way, all based on this one video source.
It definitely offers a unique lens on history and spirituality, which leads us to a final thought for you, the listener.
Yeah, considering this vast, interconnected story presented, how might it make you think differently about history, about spirituality, and about the figure of Jesus and his teachings?
Something to definitely reflect on. It's a lot to take in, this perspective tracing things back billions of years.